call
said we should give
the
it to you guys every year.
meeting of Middleton
wasn't
Plan
any
Commission
incidents or
for Tuesday, November 14th, 2017 to order. So the first item is the roll call.
All right. Paulson?
Here.
Hubbard?
Here.
Farrar?
Here.
Zellers? Here. Olson?
Here.
Dorn?
Here.
Reed?
Yeah.
So everybody here, so now the public hearing is at 7:05, so we have 5 minutes, so. All right, so let's go by the approval of the minutes. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes or discussion?
Voice from.
Okay, the motion is to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. So we can go to the second.
So the second one is for the, subject to the public hearing. Do you want to do like the design review for the retaining wall, number 9?
Okay, all right, let's go to number 9. Design review, revision for retaining wall for future form 2010 Parkview Road. You want to take it, Eileen?
Sure. This was on our agenda several months ago, and it was approved, subject to using stamped concrete. The applicant came back and showed many instances in the business park that have concrete, so they're requesting to do poured unstamped concrete. I support it just because they did point out about 10 or 12 areas where it is, and I think, they're looking for something that's functional. I don't think it's ugly. I just think it's, it's not as nice as stamped concrete, but, I think do we want to hold them to a higher standard?
Must be less expensive, huh?
I'm sure. I think they're also worried a little bit about the functionality, the durability. But
Yeah, I think the cost does make a difference, so.
I would move to approve this.
Second?
Okay, any discussion now? Okay, if there's no more discussion, the motion is to make approval of the retaining wall for future form from stamped to non-stamped. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion is passed. What do you think? We got 3 more minutes,
this
2
is
more.
number 6, the CSM for the University Avenue
Okay,
properties.
all right. Okay, so the next item is the certified survey map for University Avenue Properties LLC 6720 Frank Lloyd Wright Avenue. So you want to claim?
Sure.
Okay.
This is combining 2 existing lots, one has building, one has parking. It's actually a lot and an outlot, and it's combining it. Bruce Holler is here. If we have any questions, we can ask him. He's the engineer who worked on it. And my only concern or caveat would be to say, I didn't have time to review, I guess Alan Hembel's here too, representing the owner. Research, I don't know if there's some existing or need to be cross-access easements or cross-parking easements for adjacent properties, so I just want to make it subject to that. And there's a vacation process going on for the part of the right-of-way where the building is. That was actually going to be done at the time the building was built, and it was just not done. So the Public Works Department is holding or working on the vacation of the right-of-way, and the hearing will be held by the council, I think on December 5th. But I think the Public Works recommendation is to go ahead and vacate it. Anyway, but it doesn't really affect the CSM, except that it shows where the area that needs to be. So if you could just be subject to final staff review and subject to verification of any needed or existing parking and cross-access easements.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
I have a question. Has this been proposed before? You're on the wrong one. Oh, okay. Which one is that?
It's the one at Frankway.
Yeah.
I have a question while
Oh, this one? Well, this
Yes,
is the
Cindy.
Frankway.
I can
Okay.
see the streets and all that on here, but I have a hard time translating that to exactly, tell me what I recognize.
It's the building with, where the Prairie Cafe used to be.
Oh,
right? It's
okay.
It's where the mailboxes used to be, that building.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
The first commercial building in Middleton Hills.
okay. That's what I thought it was,
Yeah,
and then I
sorry,
thought,
yeah. I know, because it looks very strange,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
And they're just combining an outlot with the existing lot
Right.
and vacating the right-of-way.
Yes.
Just for my education, it says on the third page, submitted to the village of Wanakee for approval?
Oh, they
What?
probably just took that from another one.
Is that just a mistake? There's nothing,
That's-
okay.
I'm sure that's one of the technical comments our engineers have made.
Cindy, you had any
Yeah,
other questions?
Waunakee going to expand south to University Avenue.
Taking over, look out.
did you?
Any other,
I was looking at the terrace ones at
did we make a motion?
University Avenue thing confused.
Somebody did make a motion.
Yeah, we have a.
Oh, yeah.
Motion by Hubbard, second by Paulson.
Yeah. So any more discussion? So the motion is to pass this certified survey map for University Avenue properties on Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Okay, so it's beyond, it's 7:06, so I'm going to open the public hearing for proposed general implementation plan amendment, the community of Bishop Bay, the Black Nine neighborhood increased density. So anybody who wants to speak, either in favor or against it?
Are we taking action on this tonight?
I think my recommendation is deferral because they're working on a new proposal, which would be presented, and then they could both be acted on at the same time with the referral.
But the GIP amendment is the adding of density and
Right.
reconfiguring the neighborhood
It's the adding,
boundaries.
yeah.
Adding some of the parkland and.
Right, right.
And I apologize for the confusing way I wrote the notice, but what I was trying to show is that this is a two-step process, and the first step is to say we're going to expand the boundary of map 3, which you have in your packet, to add 7 acres of parkland, which has already been dedicated, to the neighborhood boundary, which then has more land to apply the density to. The density had been at 4.2. Applying it, it would go down to 3.9, but more acres would be in the neighborhood, and it would allow 9 more units to be added, so. And the way that the applicant is now looking at it with a condo project makes more sense in terms of where it's located. So that's why I think.
So anybody who wants to speak, I guess if there's no one speaking, I'm going to close the public hearing part of it. And then we're going to move on to item number 2, which is the proposed general implementation plan amendment, the community of Bishop Bay, the back 9 neighborhood increased density, amendment to map number 3. So, Ellen, you already
And
explained it.
again,
You want-
right, and again, we would be waiting to see what's being proposed. I understand it would be perhaps 4 single-story duplex units that would be condominiumized, but we haven't seen it yet, so my recommendation is to wait, to have them
So,
both, to have them come.
deferral.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I have to say, I feel a little vindicated for being so picky about this for so long.
Yeah.
Glad to see it.
So I guess once we have the T-Wall
We would put
comes
it
with
back on
proposal
the
and then it's
agenda.
back on the
And then the
agenda. so-
recommendation would be to the
Okay.
council,
Okay.
to see what they say.
Okay, so any questions or any further discussion? The motion is for the deferral. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. The next is
Trista.
a request for rezoning from Highway Business B3 to Planned Development District, General Implementation Plan and General Implementation Plan, Trista Mixed-Use Development, including Middleton Market. You want to take it?
Actually, I was.
Oh,
Um,
Abby?
Robin and her architects have a flyover that they would like to share with
Okay.
the commission.
Okay.
There's quite an extensive staff report included in your packet.
Yep.
Our recommendation tonight is for recommending approval to the Common Council of the rezoning to GIP for the number of units and the amount of commercial square footage being requested, with contingencies related to the TIA, the shared parking analysis, and also just noting that we're not recommending approval at this time of the architecture for the building or the materials.
And when you say a GIP rezoning for the number of units, you're also talking about the spatial configuration of the buildings, but not the architecture of the buildings, right?
Yeah, I think at the
Which-
last meeting, the massing was one of the things that we asked for feedback on, and although there wasn't formal action taken by the Plan Commission, I got the sense from the Plan Commission that you felt that the massing issue that staff had brought up could be solved by building architecture, and that you weren't opposed to having the two large buildings. You wouldn't require that the buildings would be broken up.
So, David, you had a meeting with them as well, right?
I had a meeting with them as well, yes. Yep. And
Okay.
we talked about breaking the buildings up. They made a good case for not doing a total separation of the buildings, but perhaps doing something that is symbolic of a break in the buildings.
Okay, and you are happy with that?
And I was happy with the discussion. I haven't seen the solution.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I also encouraged them to bring this piece of computer wizardry with them, because it's so much more clearer what they're trying to do than what we were seeing before.
This is SketchUp.
Yeah, so
Rabbit.
I do want to say that, you can see the Plan Commission is picky, but it's for a reason that we want the quality product coming here, and it's want to make sure that it's good for you and good for the city. And you have so much of expertise here, and they're giving up they're all volunteers, their free time to help you. So it's not, it is really to help you, to advise you, to, share all the expertise. So,
Yeah, and I want to add a few things, because when we met with David, one of the things we also changed is we brought down the wall, the retaining wall in front of the retail, which was one of the concerns that staff had brought up, and we had a great brainstorming with Mark and David on how to make that treatment a little bit more friendly and accessible within the front of the building. There is I'll let the architect show that in a minute. There's just one clarification I want to make on the staff report, and I should have had this in the GIP narrative. Abby, I apologize. Our intention is not to drop the medical redevelopment that you would see from this section. We just figured that to start the building and to start with more parking and use that space at least temporarily until that spot redevelops. Our intention still is to have redevelopment for parking underground, probably for a medical use in that corner. So that was just something in the staff report that wasn't clear from our plans, obviously, that we had still planned eventually to hopefully allow some kind of redevelopment there, depending on stormwater usage, Meritor coming on site, and things of that nature.
And that would require a GIP amendment
It
at a
would.
future date.
Yeah, it was just on the original plans, Kurt, that we brought in, and so we wanted to make sure that it was clear. We really aren't meant to make that a full parking lot forever. It's just, it made much more sense to use it to start as we see how the parking needs are out on that site.
And also, the stormwater ponds then would be temporary?
No, but if we took some of the parking out, I still think we're overparked, but I'd rather start overparked and not have to come back than be underparked and have to figure out where to put more surface area on it. So my intention at long term is that some of that parking would go away, so the stormwater would remain we'd probably move the stormwater when we made the building site on that site.
I think you're overparked too.
Well, but I'd rather, and like I said, otherwise it would have been an empty lot too. So at least in this area, we're getting some use out of it until it redevelops.
But we await the official word
Yes, right.
handed down from Walker, a parking consultant.
I have a question about,
Yes, Dan.
about that area too. I noticed that the area, there's a triangle inside the apartment enclosure that is a dog park.
Yeah.
Which seems to me to be not very attractive and not very friendly. I was thinking that dog park would be much better if it was back there between that parking lot and the water retention thing, and that perhaps there'd be some facilities made for playground. There's nothing on this, and I can't believe you have all of these apartments and there's not going to be a single child in them.
That's a really good point, which we'll look into playgrounds. We've already talked about softscape playgrounds. They just haven't gotten into the part yet. I don't think I can move that retaining, this pond is what you're talking about here, correct?
No, where the building is being taken down.
Oh, here?
Yeah. Between that and the parking. Maybe
Yep.
you don't need as much parking, and
Right.
you could make your dog park a little larger or something.
Yeah,
of that nature.
I'm still not happy with the dog park there anyway, even if I moved it
I'm
to
very
this
unhappy.
location, yeah.
I think it's a terrible
Yeah.
place to have a dog park. Because it's going to be noisy as the dickens.
Right,
With all those parallel walls.
yeah. I agree with you on that one, actually, so.
Yes, David.
I did try to make a case when we had a meeting that the landscaping in a conceptual kind of way needs to be talked about now, right?
Yep.
And rather than being something that, oh my God, we've got to landscape this, and then get a landscape architect to come and put down 3 bushes and 3 trees. So it's an integral part of the design of what you want to do with the design. So I will be looking for some of that indication of that as well.
Yeah, and we have engaged a landscape architect who has done a report that has been distributed saying that we're going to meet all the requirements. The conversation that we also had was talking about landscaping the retaining wall with that terraced retaining wall now, and we're showing that in our conceptual 3Ds as well as noting it on our plans that each one of those terraces will have full landscaping to soften that transition between the sidewalk and such. And then using prairie grasses and everything else around those stormwater ponds and areas, it makes a lot of sense just from a design standpoint as well as from a functional standpoint, and then lining those pedestrian walkways with deciduous trees and trying to create that walkway to line that area to define those spaces. We're trying to show that in this diagram. It's at a very small scale right now, but we are calling that out, and that is definitely part of our design intent, is to make sure that the landscape blends with the architecture. Obviously, they're one and the same.
So you want to go through the
Yeah, let's do
presentation
that.
then? Or-
Yeah, and I guess we're gonna kind of do this as like a dialogue back and forth,
Okay.
just because we're on the same team right now, so we're just
Okay.
trying to make sure everybody's clear on everything. What we put together here was a kind of a diagram site plan to kind of help everybody understand where there's going to be pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic, just so that everybody can see that we are accommodating, an easy way to get around the site. So if you guys have that in your packet.
Yep.
Okay, so like the red arrows on this plan or this board here are all the vehicle traffic. So we've got that road going through the middle, we've got the parking, we've got the road going along the back, and then obviously Lisa Lane and Laura Lane. The purple arrows I think are the most important, as they describe kind of the pedestrian traffic as you're going through. So there's full public pedestrian walkways in between these buildings, the retail portion and the apartments, as well as around the market. So there isn't like any point where you would have to walk 5 miles around this whole development to get to the other side. We've got public access running through the buildings at those key locations to allow people to park anywhere on the site to get anywhere they need to go. So we tried to make it as pedestrian friendly as possible. We also have the pedestrian walkways going around the stormwater retention ponds, which will be nice for the markets and winter markets and all these things that are going to go on in this space. We've got fire pit area towards the front of the project and one towards the back here. And as this gets developed more, that's actually going to be, I believe, a bar for the market. So there's going to be an outdoor internal courtyard that's kind of inside this space. That'll be a really nice place for people to be. So basically just wanted to kind of describe this in a diagrammatic format so that we could all be clear that we've listened to what you guys have said. We understand that we need that pedestrian traffic. We need people to easily access anywhere on the site. And I think now at this point we've really achieved that. Mm-hmm. And then moving over here, rather than trying to print 100 different views of this thing, this is our Revit model. That this is basically the software that we use to design and engineer and everything this project. So we've got the whole thing built in 3D. Right here, Paul has it up showing the retail portion of the project. So we've got tenant signage all designed into the facade. I know that was a concern of you guys during our conversation, David. That was another thing that you had brought up, and we're actually showing tenant signage and where the signage would go on the project. This was kind of the biggest design change that we made on this portion of the site, having the terraced retaining wall instead of just the one retaining wall. This is going to be terraced back at 2 spots, basically giving us an area to have landscaping, to have different things to kind of break up that big retaining wall that was there. And the reason why that retaining wall is so big down in this area, is the road kind of goes down, and it's kind of it's not really clear when you're there, but it does drop about 8 feet, I think, from 6 feet from one side to the next. And with the water table being where it's at and the underground parking and everything else, we're pinned right now at where we're at. So the retaining wall was a challenge. The retaining wall we're going to do is going to be a stamped concrete decorative retaining wall. It'll be a board-formed concrete stamped retaining wall that'll match the wood aesthetic that we have going on in the building. So it's all going to be, the landscape will be built into the building. There's going to be things that are talking back and forth to one another so that it doesn't just look like somebody plopped a building on a piece of land or somebody put a bunch of stuff around a building. We're gonna have this integrated into the design. Paul, if we can scoot this way.
You quickly mentioned the height of those 2 walls and the fence. Do you have those off the top of your head?
Well, they vary. So the lower one, I think, is 3 feet.
Yeah, we have it 6 feet from the road to first floor on the far west end, and it's about 3.5 feet by the time you get to the middle there.
So it's 3 and 3 here, but it's 1.5, and or
right.
Be very minimal over here and there.
Yeah. So one of our biggest concerns, I think, is the way that it's shown right now, with there just being those little tiny walkways up to the retail. Because when you're standing on the sidewalk on the western side, you're looking at 6 feet of retaining wall and then a 4-foot fence on top of that.
Yes.
Or railing.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a 3-foot, 42-inch railing, so it'd be a little bit less than that. But yeah, and that's only on this side though.
Right.
Now the comments about the 20-foot stair that came up, we could possibly do that on this side, but the stair actually comes up and turns because we don't have the room between the sidewalk and the buildings to do that and then still have this outdoor area up here. So if we were to do a 20-foot, you'd be into the building at that point. So
no, we meant 20 feet wide.
Yeah.
Right, but the stair, can you?
Into it.
But if you're going
Right,
up-
like these,
if you're
the
going
way
up
that
6
they're
feet,
designed, they
Zoom
look
in.
like
you don't have
little,
the room.
Can you
little
zoom in?
erosion ways on the side of a mountain or something. They don't look wide and open and inviting.
Right.
Yeah.
We just physically don't have the depth to do it.
See,
So
because
you
the
have
stair,
You have the width to do it.
you want the bottom one wider, and then we can,
Right.
right,
You could,
Right.
you could go both ways then.
right,
Yes.
right.
I got you.
And yeah, we can absolutely widen that stair up. That's not a problem.
I mean, it does look mean, like you've drawn it right there, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Looks like keep out. It's
Yeah.
tight.
That's never been our intention, no.
And how many do you
Since you
have,
need to get your
know?
retail leases. Yeah.
Do you have enough of them? Perhaps there should be another one somewhere.
Yeah, and we can add more of them. We can make them wider. This is the concept that we're using for, how we're going to get people from the sidewalk up to the retail space. Wider, obviously, yeah.
There's
That's
really not, most of the traffic is going to be coming from the parking areas.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a lot of traffic coming from the road and the sidewalk up to that.
right. So
That's not what we want to hear, because
Yeah, there's-
we really want this to be designed
And there's housing across
to
the
the
street,
so
couple
that it
hundred units.
engages with
I'm not
pedestrians who are
saying that,
walking
but I'm
by.
saying
and-
most of them, I don't think are going to be coming from the street.
A lot of people might.
We
walk
hope
from
that they
across
will.
the
We I mean, this is one of the primary redevelopment areas of the city, and we really want this project
To that point is, the other part is that we've talked about that crosswalk, and so you want the people going through the crosswalks, but I'm not opposed at all to making those wider and more inviting on the ends and in the middle and here. That I have no issue with that at all.
like where people who are walking by might actually have a seat there and sit on
Right.
the steps, and it could be much more vibrant than just having this small, narrow.
I completely understand that.
yeah, that's
Yeah, that the wide stairs, as it interacts with the street, is almost like a mini plaza.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
And
I suppose.
it relate to something on the other side of the street.
Yep.
No, there might be something coming across there, right, that says this ought to go here because something happens on the other side of the street.
Right. No, absolutely. We can make it wider. I'm sorry. I just misunderstood what that comment was. That's all. So we can absolutely make
Talked about
that.
signage, can you also show them where the signage on the Beltline side is?
Yeah,
just
can
so
you
they see that?
can you zoom out real quick?
Well, while we're looking at that picture, is that handicap accessible on that street? Is there a ramp, or is it just stairs?
There is not a ramp from this portion of the sidewalk, but they can get up and around throughout multiple areas on the site other than
And I'm
just
assuming
that
that's
portion.
ADA compliant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And we put all the ramps as close to the handicap parking.
Right.
spots.
Yep.
Well, and your lender's going to require that too. So.
Yeah. So if you rotate, Paul, the Beltline signage is on the back wall of this right here. So we've tried to design and make sure that we have signage designed into the facade. Obviously, we don't know what that's going to say at this point, or what the font's going to be, or any of that stuff. But we're trying to put the signage on the building so that you guys can see that we're designing areas for it, and it doesn't just get plopped on second hand and look like garbage after the first 5 tenants move in and out or whatever happens. So. Okay, moving, if you can flip back, Paul, we can talk about,
Are the buildings on both sides of the road on the same level?
the first floor is,
First floor is 1 foot lower on the west building.
oh,
Okay, so it is, you are stepping down the hill a little
As much
bit.
as we can.
Okay, yep.
Unless we want to repave the whole road.
right.
That was a joke. We're not redoing the whole road.
Can you turn more, Paul, here? Yeah, we can show the entrance. Basically, what we've done is, we've got an entrance for the apartments here, and then we've created a atrium space. So we got rid of a unit or two, and opened up a 2-floor atrium space where the public can walk through the building and come through. So it's not just like a little doorway where people are like, oh, can I go through there or not? This is going to be a public entry, public space where it'll be open and and as much as possible, so that it did kind of solve that problem of being concerned about having just a door there for people to go through. If we want to go around to the other side, we can kind of look at.
Excuse me, how would that work if you were to pop out that section instead of recessing it like it looks like it is?
And
that would make it again more inviting and would break up your facade.
Pop out that whole corner?
No.
We would be
right where your hand is.
Yeah, we would. It would take away from this design element. To be totally honest with you, I really think it would take away from this, which, if you look at this in the 3D views and everything else, this is going to be a pretty cool looking element that's going to draw people into this space. Having this back here kind of made sense to us as well, because people are kind of in here walking through it. You're not really looking to walk through it from, you know what I mean? Like, once you're in the space and you're in the design, in this whole system, you're gonna know where to go and everything else. But we absolutely, if it's that important, we absolutely can figure out a way to make this come out further to address that concern.
Well, it's just a, to make it more prominent. I'm just talking about moving it forward.
Yeah.
Toward the roadway.
Pulling this out this way.
Right. Is that what?
Can you
instead of flyover?
Yeah, Paul, we've got views like crazy. I mean, we can show you every inch of this thing inside and out. It's just about what you guys want to see. So I mean, this area is a pretty dramatic 2-story height space. It's got a lot of glass on the facade. It's going to be very inviting once you're in this development as to where to go. And
well, it looks like it's already popped out.
Yeah, we did.
What is that? About 6 feet, 8 feet, or something like that?
Yeah, well, this is 5, so it's probably 8 to 10 feet popped out. So it comes out quite a bit.
Okay. Well, that does exactly what.
Okay. Perfect.
Are the garage doors in there somewhere?
We did not put a garage door. We could pop one in here. One of the concerns about an actual garage door would be, sealing it up for the wintertime and everything else. But we can absolutely take a look at actually putting a garage door in there. I think from a security standpoint and everything else, these might work out better. But we can look at the specific door type.
We just for the plan commission, we talked about the garage doors being open in the summer, right? That walkway would be much more clearer and not encumbered by a door during the summer. And in the winter time, it would be closed, and there would be doors. A regular door for people to walk through in the winter time.
Right.
They do that in restaurants and stuff.
Yep.
Figured that out.
Yeah, there's different levels of garage door. There's like overhead door companies. There's even doors that actually open like accordion style doors for the exterior that. Robin's gonna.
We will look at that anyway, David, because I still like it.
Right.
So then, we've broken up the facade. We've extruded out, items throughout the facade. You can see kind of from these aerial views how we're intending there to be a lot of dynamic shift in that facade plane throughout the entire project. It's never, and I apologize for the elevations before, but should have brought this along to begin with, but we've never intended it to look flat or boring at all. This is definitely a very very interesting design as far as that goes compared to what you would typically see in a apartment development. Again, there's a retaining wall on this side, but the retaining wall over here is much shorter, so we didn't feel like we needed to start terracing that back or anything like that, because the market is going to have a need for more space out front. So we were able to not do the terracing on that side, but it's not really that high to begin with over there.
I also brought along some of that faux wood samples for you guys to look at if you wanted to today, specifically looking at Kurt over there.
This?
Yeah, that's a similar color, yeah. I just brought it, and some pictures of,
The problem is when you look at this up close, it looks fake.
well, yeah, of course it
Yeah,
does, but some pictures as
You
well,
wanna
if
hold
you
it at,
guys
like,
want to.
30 feet out.
Right, and you're never going to be right on top of it, but it's actually, so it's still a material that's made here in Wisconsin.
For the retaining wall,
No, this is
for the building?
the building itself. And we're not at that point yet, but I wanted to give you some feel on what we're looking at from a look and feel.
Robin, is the color you first gave to Kurt, is that the actual?
We have not narrowed the color down, that's why I've only brought like a range of sample colors. So it's made in Wisconsin, but they actually finish it in Canada, of all places, to get the more natural looking look of it.
More, better dyes up in Canada.
They use 8 to 10 different colors. Oh, sorry.
It's
They
the
use
maple
10
syrup.
different colors of stain within the finish to get that more natural look. And it's for us, it's very sustainable because the wood's a byproduct wood and it's made here in Wisconsin, so I like that part a lot.
So it's an actual wood product.
It is an actual wood product, yeah. It's not the fiber cement stuff.
And it's very durable.
Yeah, it comes with a 30-year warranty on the finish
Oh,
and a 50-year warranty on the material.
We've been using it for 20 years and have never had an issue with it. So it's been a very good product.
Do you have that on the traced on the waterfront in Monona? Okay, then I've seen it. Yeah.
Traced does more of a, the gray is all of, so we use just different colors there. We're going with a more natural wood look on this one. So, all right. Anything else?
I don't know, does anybody have any other questions at this point?
Well, my biggest question is you have 7 stormwater ponds there.
Yep,
So you need those 7?
every single inch of every single one of them,
Because the water table is pretty high.
because the water table.
And the soils are pretty.
Yep.
That's part of it, but the biggest issue here is that this is not considered redevelopment. So even because it was a baseball field, it has the new development requirements. So you add the bad soils and the water, and there was never considered a building type on that site. Now I have a much more stringent stormwater requirement than I would have if I was doing something downtown and redeveloping it downtown.
The land is very flat.
The land is very flat, yeah.
I think one of the, can I just add one quick thing? I think Abby's staff report was really well written, and I think there's been a lot of progress made, thanks to comments that have been made. I think one of the things, and this isn't a technical planning or architectural thing, but I think one of the things that we're hoping for is that it is kind of knock your socks off architecture and landscape architecture, when it comes back, and that's why I think the recommendation was for the use, not the, and again, I know there's been progress, and that's great, but we just didn't know that we were quite there yet.
No, absolutely, Eileen. I just wanted to make sure that if there were big red flags, we heard it now rather than a month from now when we come back again. Because you miss me when I'm gone for more than a couple weeks, right?
Okay, so more questions?
Excuse me, is this the reference you had to additional brick? I think, Abby,
Yeah.
taking the brick up higher and so forth?
Yeah, and that'll all be part of the more detailed submittal that comes along with the next level of approvals with you guys.
Are there any set of large spaces like exercise rooms and things like that that can have glass surfaces, things that would break up those, that would?
We are using a storefront material on the retail and everything else, more like a more traditional.
No, I know, but that's down there. I'm talking about like
Oh,
in other places. I mean, you've got
Yeah,
some
I
nice
mean-
areas there, it looks like.
Why would
You've got some, but they're all sort of concentrated.
I don't want to see people exercising.
well, I will tell you that we went through the requirement for glazing requirements and everything else on this building and for the energy calcs and all that stuff, and we're trying to do a sustainable building. We're trying to, do the right thing with the photovoltaics and everything else that we have going on this project. And we've got that allowable glazing just pinned. So, our windows are much bigger than what a typical development like this would have on the exterior walls. We're using a lot of storefront glazing. The market is going to be a lot of glass type of overhead doors. That there'll be a lot of openness and airiness to that. So we do have that kind of pinned at this point. We can add a little bit of glass here and there in key areas.
Well, maybe there are other materials too, but it's just, when you take it, you give it the squint test. The squint test says it's all the same.
We will take that when we come back, Dennis, and bring that back. We are going to be an Energy Star certified building, and so I am limited on my glass to wall ratio within that standard as well.
My point is there are other materials too,
correct.
But it's just something that is distinctly different enough that it doesn't all.
Yep. Absolutely.
And of course, the irony is, to be the most Green Energy Star certified building, you would want to have 0 windows. But that's not very aesthetically pleasing, right? Because
until fall or spring, then you want all windows.
Right.
Yes, Ally.
I know you guys talked about this last time, and I wasn't here, and I apologize. But could you just talk a little bit more about like the type of retail use that you would be having in the?
I met with my first market vendor this last week, and we're very close to our first market vendor, so I'm very excited about that. The retail uses in that space will be much more service-oriented retails, although I would love to have that brewery in there. I think that would be really exciting. But more spa. So we have an LOI with a spa currently, and we're seeing chiropractor, massage therapy if the spa, dentist, destination type service, and that would be ancillary both to the residents there as well as the people that are going to Meritor when Meritor comes online.
That's the western portion.
Correct.
The eastern portion's the market.
The eastern portion's the market, yep.
Okay, yes, David.
Did you think any more about naming?
No, just that I haven't gotten very far with it. You got an idea for me?
The Reed Center of Excellence.
That would be fine.
Brower Apartments.
Paulson.
No, I think that is actually, for safety reasons, that's going to be something we're kind of going to stick on, because Market West is.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're totally fine with that. We just haven't had a brainstorm on what makes sense yet.
Trista on Parmenter.
We've talked about using the Trista name again. We just, it really depends on who's our management company at the other building at the time. So we still like Trista.
I did have a question. Remind me what we decided on that road. It's going to stay a private road?
Correct.
But the GIP submittal reserves the ability for the city to take the full 66 feet or right-of-way.
Right.
And that's in the GIP zoning? Or is that a condition of the GIP zoning?
The condition of it.
Yeah, it would be a condition that the city would have a reservation for 20 years of 66 feet of right-of-way for the north-south road, and then for the west-east connection, 51 feet, yeah.
And
the other 15 would have to come.
okay, that is not in the recommendation, or is that?
It's in the it's in the,
It's in this.
It's in the GIP submittal.
it says site road, right there. Abby, you said for 20 years?
Yeah, that's a 20
Yeah,
years,
because we have to put according to our city attorney, in order to do a reservation, we need to have a finite amount of time. And so we were thinking maybe 20 years would be appropriate.
Yeah,
What
this
happens
is,
at the end of those 20 years?
If we don't act to, exercise our ability to take that on as public roadway, then we would lose that ability. Or we would at that point then be in a position where, if 25 years down the road we decide we want it, then we would have to negotiate with the property owner to purchase the property or
And you
use.
can't renegotiate another period at the end of the first period?
I didn't ask him about that, but if the time frame isn't acceptable, we could say we want 30 years.
I would
Or
think
Right.
any more 20 years seems like nothing to me.
I think the 20 years comes from the state official mapping statutes.
Oh, does
so
it?
it could be.
I could look those up, but The idea is again, if a city designates a public right-of-way on an official map, it only has a limited amount of time before it can actually exercise
Right.
the right, otherwise it reverts to the owner. But
Well, the guidance we
makes some
received
sense.
from Larry was that we needed to have a set number
You have
of
to have a
years.
time limit.
And we sort of on our own just said, well, how about 20? But it doesn't have to be 20. It can be, I think that it can be 30 or 40 or 50.
And in the meantime, and even after the 20 years expires, we would still have a public access easement through that period. So the public has the right to utilize that.
And the easement is permanent. An easement is permanent.
Right,
The
unless
public
you
road
get
is
it.
a-
Yeah.
Right.
Is a reservation.
One other thing, Abby, I don't think this ended up in the staff report, is though that we talked about the dual entrances and how we're open to allowing an easement for access to the other lot.
Yes, that should have made it into the staff report. Thank you for reminding me.
No problem.
This conversation came up in our planning public works staff meeting, and there was a little bit of consternation, I think, on the part of our public works staff that the driveway entrance on the east side of this property could not be a dual use with the existing driveway that's on property to the east that provides access to the car wash. And that was one of the things I know Robin tried for early on, and the owner said, nope, we're not interested in working with you. And there's really nothing that we can do about that at this point, but we thought, well, why don't we also have a reservation of land on the east side of Robin's driveway so that if that property redevelops, we're not stuck in the same position again, where, you know, there have to be two driveway accesses so close to each other. In other words, if we decided to exercise our ability to get the reservation of land, we would be able to allow the property to the east to share a driveway with this property.
That's a good idea.
And Robin was amenable to that.
Yep, that's why I brought it up, so we didn't forget it.
Yes.
Okay, other questions or comments? Otherwise, the staff recommendation is the approval of the rezoning for planned development district, GIP, with the number of apartments, units, and the amount of commercial space requested. So do I,
I would make a motion to recommend approval to the common council, rezoning as PDD, GIP, for the number of units and the amount of commercial square foot being requested with the contingencies listed in the staff report and the reservation of the
okay.
right-of-way is listed in the staff report.
Need
There's
a-
an ad, you gotta add that other right away.
Okay.
And the right-of-way,
Okay. All of the
That-
comments which, well, staff report plus the comments. So.
Yes, wife.
Okay, so now the discussion. David, anybody else?
I think we pretty well had the discussion.
Okay, so then the motion is to approve the PDD and GIP for the number of apartment units and the commercial square footage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back with.
You're gonna need a
How
lot
about,
more. I just wanted to let you know you're gonna
Robin?
need a lot more of this.
you could call the neighborhood Robin's Hood.
My husband doesn't appreciate that.
We gotta get Fort
Karen,
Kinsman
don't
out
go
of these things.
Don't go. This Robin's.
Okay, so the
This.
next item on the
Really
agenda
doesn't-
is the
It's supposed
They
to.
don't
rezoning.
They're meant to, so,
you miss each other.
yeah.
If you don't mind, since you're tall.
Are we ready for the next item?
Unless we want to connect.
We're going to turn on the lights here.
We don't.
Thank you, Robin. So, okay, so the next item is request for rezoning from single-family residential to planned development district infill, general implementation plan. This is the Gateway Residential Redevelopment by Jeff. Go. 2105 North Gateway Street. And some of the people have indicated that please speak a little bit louder, so, you know, some people are a little bit hard of hearing on, especially on this item. Okay, so how do you want to go?
Will Mark prepare the staff
Mark?
report?
Yes, as you recall, this was, there was a public hearing on this request on August 22nd. As noted in the staff report on page 3, I summarized the comments we received. In your packets also, we provided some additional comments that we received. I also made all the public input available online in the online packet. I have a supplement to the analysis and recommendations section. Because the applicant applied for PDD infill zoning, in this case, that was the application, I did look at the standards listed in our ordinance, the specific standards, the additional standards that are identified. Maximum impervious surface area of 50%. This meets that. Every single, well, one lot is 52%, but that's lot 7, but the others range from 30 to 45%. The maximum floor area ratio, maximum of 70%, is achieved with every lot. And then the minimum required usable open space per dwelling unit, 100 square feet, that is also met. So I just wanted to add that because I should have included that in the staff report.
So it meets all the criteria.
It meets all the criteria for PDD
Okay.
infill zoning.
Can we have a discussion about the difference in PDD and PDDI again? No.
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 So I
Anything
don't have
else?
anything else. No, if you have questions, I'm happy to elaborate on any of my comments.
So the, seems like there's a couple of issues that have been raised in the public hearing and the question before. Is Tom here?
Yep.
Okay. In our packet, we got a document entitled David Reed Concept 822, which shows 6 units as opposed to 7. Right?
Yep.
And I think that's one issue we want to discuss. One of the other issues that came up is street parking. So I'm not sure how we want to, who wants to handle what first, but.
Well, yes, David.
Let me just address what I was talking about with this drawing. I was concerned about establishing the buildings facing the street, on the existing street. So the two new...
On which street?
On North Gateway. The buildings are parallel to the street, rather than this haphazard arrangement on the proposal for 7.
Because the proposal has lot 7, it fronts on North Gateway, but the driveway is on Charing Cross and it's entering in the rear. As I saw it, right?
That's not the issue, though. The issue is the face
The facing.
of the building is not parallel with the street.
Right.
So we're keeping the character of the street that is there now, rather than this sort of ad hoc relationship of buildings to the street that is proposed by the 7 units. Now, this is what I would call a tissue study. I just cut up things.
Yes, yeah.
And put them back down in different places. It might be that there's a much better way of doing it, but I think the issue is saying, let's keep the character of the street as something that is building on the existing character rather than something haphazard at that corner.
Because the houses going north on North Gateway are all single families?
Or they're all single families, but they're parallel to the street.
Parallel to the street. And so I guess to ask you then, is it possible for you to get the 7 that you were asking for while still maintaining that parallel to the street concept, given the lot size configuration?
So what you're saying is that you would slide lot 7 forward, lot 6 back, and lot 5 back?
Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen that. Is that? I'm not sure
That's
what.
with 6.
Yeah, I've got that copy.
I don't think you can get 3 in there.
3 on that corner?
On that corner, on North Gateway Street.
Certainly not without reducing the setback on the northernmost lot.
Lot 5.
I suppose it could be possible, but then the southernmost lot would have a very skinny rear yard, would almost be a point.
Right.
I know I saw it.
do the 6 buildings fit the R1?
No.
No, it doesn't. So how many fit the R1 would?
It's theoretically possible to do 5 lots and comply with R1 minimum standards.
And one of the advantages of PDD zoning, as we've discussed frequently, is that we can deal with the issues of how the house interacts with the street, those design issues, whereas R1 zoning, you just have a minimum lot size, and the developer can almost put it on the street at whatever angle she chooses or he chooses. So do you want to respond to that?
Well, I'm not sure how I understand the parallel concept. I understand the 2 lots on Gateway and what you're trying to say there, but to turn 3 lots on Gateway to be mimicking 2 lots, 2 homes, it wouldn't work. There's not enough frontage on Gateway to make that happen. So I do like the 6 lots. It just changes the whole dynamics of the numbers in my eyes. And I think what the task force for workforce housing was trying to get at is affordability. And I came up with a number that if I went from 7 to 6, it increased the whole project by about 14%.
I thought it said also that didn't mean affordable housing from the workforce task force.
Right, so I remember what brilliant letter I signed that Abby made me sound good on. It was the idea that it's kind of smaller houses on smaller lots that meet that kind of middle price range for kind of a starter home, but it doesn't meet our definition of affordable in the sense that it's not going to be at a price point for someone making 80% of median or below. Right. So if I recall, you said that the 7 lots, the prices would start at about 3-something, 350.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that if you had to go up to 6 or went down to 6 units, your price point would start at
Probably high 3s.
380.
Possibly.
7.
I mean, the other thing, that I look at as a builder and a developer is lumber. And now lumber, since, Trump came into office, put a 20% tariff on Canadian lumber. Then we had the hurricanes and the floods. Lumber's up like 60%. I looked at the 2x4, it's like $5 now. When I did Amherst, they were $1.80. So, now you're looking at a $30,000 increase in lumber alone. I'm like shocked. I mean, it just took the wind out of my sails. I don't even know if I would build right now because of that. I might just say it can't be done and just wait. But every time that something like this happens, it's just like 10% here, 20% there. And all of a sudden, hate to say anything's affordable anymore. So it's hard to put a price on a number on this stuff. When I look at these projects coming online, I look at all the apartments. I think the city's going to turn into a city of apartment dwellers. I mean, I don't know where you're going to ever get affordable housing or any housing that can be considered affordable anymore without doing like these infill projects. I mean, this is such a unique project because you've got the existing sewer in the back. You got you got a manhole back there. All these 7 homes or 6 homes, whatever it may be, will be tying into an existing main without having to bust into the road. So there's some distinct advantages to doing infill projects.
Right, and given construction and land costs, it's almost impossible to build a new unit that's going to be at a price point that's affordable. But providing this range of housing choices close to the city was what we were looking at.
Yeah.
So, so at a certain level, it is the numbers question that you're asking for 7. David's concept is 6. R1 is 5. And I think a lot of people, well, what's the point of arguing over a few houses? But it really changes the character of what you can do.
It really changes the character.
And what you can do economically viable in that neighborhood because it is close to downtown. It's got good bones in the neighborhood. And the total site area, remind us again, is how many acres?
A little over an acre. Very similar to Stagecoach, about that 1.1 acres or 1.06 acres. Okay. He's getting 39 units of density. I'm getting 7.
43.
43 an acre or whatever. So.
43.
Is this something you feel, Tom, that you could just sit on the land for a while and wait?
Well, I'm seriously looking at lumber.
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
because I remember this distinctly when Hurricane Sandy happened.
Yeah.
And the lumber was just, it tripled, and then it came down. But it took a couple years.
It'll
before
take some time.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
I looked at the market, and typically it's a little softer in February. I'm hoping it comes down, but a sheet of OSB was like $8. It's 19 now. I mean, it's like, I'm shocked, you know. And I've seen a lot of this stuff, drywall shortage or concrete coming from Mexico, and now it's lumber. And lumber, it's like potatoes, you know. It'll come down, but it's really kind of shocking. I mean, all of a sudden you add 30,000 to the price tag, and it's going, oh, I don't know. You know, you might be better to wait, you know. And
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. You
Yeah.
know, because I think that everybody, we could sort of live. We got you can do the 5 without any problem. You can do the 7, but it really looks tight. 6, it is here. Looks.
I like
nice.
6, you know, but
So is there enough time that you can wait to? Can you hold on to the land long enough?
yeah, I'm not a winter construction guy. I'm too old for that. So
But if we, I mean, if council approves a GIP amendment or a rezoning to GIP, you have 1 year, right, to get an SIP approved before potentially it reverts back to the R1 zoning.
right. I mean, I'd like to be started in the spring. You know,
We can grant
approvals.
extensions, but
Yeah, that's the extension would be.
so do I hear you saying that you're okay with a rezoning to GIP that would limit it to 6 units?
I'm probably okay. You know, I guess it would come back to workforce housing. And like I said, every time we make one little change, it adds that much more to the price of a house. And so like I had come up with a number about 14%. You know, and now you've got these lots that are going to be more expensive. And if we take, you know, 3 times the price of the lot for improvements, and the price of the lot goes up 15 grand or something, you know, you add 45,000 in cost of improvement. So now all of a sudden you know, basically adds 45 grand to the 60 grand to the, you know, lot and the improvements. And that's the difficulty with building. Either you have to be committed to doing this or doing that. And if you want the affordable part of a residential single-family home, that's the lowest price in Middleton, that's 7's the way to go. The market will support. The market will support 6 homes. The 2 on Gateway are premium lots.
Yeah.
I don't even think I would build on those. You know, I might just sell them to a homeowner and let them choose their own builder, because those lots will go up significantly in price.
I mean, the only way to really bring down the price would be a much smaller lot subdivision of about 15 homes, which is probably. I mean, so if you change the plan, what would probably happen is the workforce housing would probably just withdraw its endorsement, which doesn't necessarily mean anything positive or negative. It's just there's a lot of market rate housing that we just don't comment on in the committee.
Right. And
If this was zone PDD, would he be able to sell off those 2 lots? Isn't that PDD just one?
No, you can sell it because they're creating single-family lots
Okay.
in the PD.
So in the PDD zoning, then actually, my concern is if you're seeking PDD zoning, you have to submit a site plan that shows lot configurations, and so, So
Yeah.
that would be,
About that, sorry.
there's a sellable lots.
Well, I think, you know, it's worth considering the timing so that we could get something like the 6-lot idea in there, because it would really keep the neighborhood looking more, give it more of its character. And I would also maybe give you some, I don't know, these are all the same outline now, that also might give you some freedom in terms of changing the appearance of them, which would add also to the, to how it would fit into the neighborhood, which has got a lot of unique stuff in it.
yeah.
I mean, if a developer voluntarily is willing to reduce the number of lots he's asking for, there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, we're not going to force him to build more houses, right? So that,
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, he's willing to, he's not, it sounds like you're willing to go down to 6. But
You
you're not
know,
going to
I
sit here
think
and
it's
fight and
against-
argue.
I think it's against what workforce housing is saying, and it's against kind of what I believe in, but if that's what you want to approve, then I can live with it. But, you know, I just think if you're really truly trying to solve, you know, create affordable housing, I hate to even say that word because 350 isn't even affordable anymore, but if you're trying to create the least expensive new single-family construction in Middleton, this is it. If you reduce the density and increase the price by 14% or increase the price by 40 to 50,000 a unit, you know, I think the market can support 400. I can live with that. It's Middleton. You know, it's a hot market, but it kind of goes against the principles of, I think, what it was trying to.
But it is up to you. I mean, if you're willing to say, no, I want to fight for 7, then that's a different conversation.
Well,
But
6 is always easier for me to build or sell versus 7. I just have to increase the price. But there again, I think that people should have an opportunity to buy a home. You know, not everybody that has a dog wants to be walking in a common hallway in an apartment building. You know.
So, but in this case, you said that you are rearranging those 3 lots to become 2 and you plan to sell it, but then the other 4 will be still lower price, right, or not?
Well, I mean, like everything goes up in value. You know, you just can't, you know, it's like you don't want to be the most expensive home in the neighborhood. You want them to be similar, but all of a sudden you add 2 premium lots. I think the lots in Gateway are premium at that point. They're out of my comfort zone where, you know, I don't want to do a custom home, you know, sell a lot for X amount and then do a custom home on it because I know what the numbers are going to be and I don't want to be that builder, you know. I'd rather do more and take less and, you know.
That's 2 questions.
Yes, Cindy.
One is for people that know more about this than I do. The neighborhood around there, if those houses were for sale, I think probably wouldn't be in the price range of what we're talking about here. So how does that affect what we're willing to put here? The only way to get houses that are reasonably priced is to have more of them. So from your perspective, how does that fit in?
The only way to get houses now that are reasonably priced is for people to acquire older houses.
Existing houses.
Right, that has some depreciation. So it's like, I mean, we've been talking about this in workforce housing that it's pretty hard to build anything new that's going to be affordable. So help people maybe get into older housing with down payment loans or rehab loans or something like that. The properties just to the north, the single families, I think they're assessed at
We're looking.
310, 320? They're in the condos.
But she's in a condo. Oh, no, she's in a house, yeah.
Right, so, I mean,
Okay. So there are some comparable. Yeah, okay.
But then again, you've got apartments to the east.
Right. Well,
And
and
you've
we've
got
talked
condos to the
We've talked
south.
before about
It's a good
different kinds of
transition to single
neighborhoods.
families.
Yeah. My
because
question-
the alternative would be something like more of a townhouse or city house arrangement on the Charing Cross, transitioning to singles on the Gateway, but
That's
that
what
seemed
I
to-
was thinking too.
that seemed to raise a lot of objections, and you're not a townhouse builder.
I wouldn't do that. I
My
just,
second question is to you, Tom. You're asking for this change in zoning now, but based on what you're saying, I'm not so sure you really want it now.
well, I always never know if I'm ever making the right decision. I mean, that's the way developers are. You know, there's always somebody out there with maybe a better idea. I mean, I went to the workforce housing and I saw the concept of a 6-unit, a 4-unit, or 5-unit. I liked it, you know, and I thought, oh, maybe that's the way to go, you know, but I just don't want to do multifamily. I just made that decision a long time ago. But maybe that's, you know, for someone else to do that if they want to bring it back to them.
Would it affect the price much if you were to not have those driveways on Charing Lane Cross and then instead sort of join them in the back, have garages in the back and have a common area there, and then it could be blacktop and it, you know, could be just less individual.
I had drawn up a concept plan like that. I didn't particularly care for it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a rain garden back there, for stormwater
Yeah.
management. It's pretty significant, we're accommodating not only the on-site detention, but we're also picking up part of Charing Cross and North Gateway coming down off of University Avenue. So there's a lot of water that'll be, accommodated there, so.
I mean, the truth is, if you look
You know,
at
I want to be able to sell them too, and like on Henry Court back in 2000, we did have some joint driveways, and they were an issue. It's kind of a neighbor thing.
I mean, if you look at the kind of affordable small lot subdivisions around the country and even over like in Monona, you do have usually a slip parking in the back where it's a common driveway.
Right.
And, I mean, Tom's right, but those are going to assess, a shared driveway is going to assess for, or sell for somewhere between 10 and 30,000 less per unit. I mean, one way to make housing affordable is to make it shared driveways. That kind of goes against the kind of single-family concept that he's looking for. You make it affordable, making units smaller, lots smaller. I mean,
Having had one is also a great way to lose friends.
yeah, to have a shared driveway.
Well, no, that was one of the big concerns too with the neighbors when they came in, is there's not going to be any parking on this area anymore, and I think we should try to figure out some way that they don't lose all the parking on the street.
Well, you have to remember, you have a two-car garage, and you have a two-car drive apron, so every unit has 4 spaces of parking for itself. And most people don't park in the road. It's usually a guest parking for themselves.
Are there other,
fact-
can I ask the question? It wasn't just the people that live there that park there, though.
It's actually the apartments, the low-income apartments
Yeah.
that don't have enough parking spots. They're doubling up there, and so you're finding them parking on the road. It's not the condos and it's not the houses. It's our
Yeah, so it's still,
So let me make an argument about that says at a certain level we shouldn't care about street parking, which is every house has its own parking, and we require apartments to have some minimum amount of parking. And then what's left over is people can park on the street. And it's kind of first come, first served, and it's a city. And so, if you have an overnight guest, they may have to park half a block away. You can't, no one has an implicit right to always have the space in front of their house on the public street be open to parking.
true.
So, part of the issue might be that if it becomes a traffic or a safety issue, then we have alternate side parking or no overnight parking requirements or those sort of kind of ordinance nuisance sort of things. But, people used to be able to park there. I understand that. Now, they have to, right? Everyone should park on their own parcel, and the street is for everyone, kind of. That's just my view.
But on the street, they're losing a lot.
On the street.
Yeah, they're
If you're losing
a
street
lot.
parking spaces,
Yeah, they do.
there's other streets around.
There's actually not a lot of parking in that area. Because of the way the road is, there's no parking on the other side for a lot of the other side of the road.
Right. How many street parking spaces would we lose this way? Sean showed us.
I think 5, 4 or 5, or maybe.
But this is saying that the existing problems on other parcels and their generation of street parking demand
Trump the development.
trumps landowner's property rights to develop his property, which
that's a very
doesn't
good point.
seem
Yeah.
fair either.
Yep.
People are willing to walk a very long distance to get to Camp Randall. So I think somebody could park 2 blocks away and walk
Right.
2 blocks.
Cities have
without
dealt with
much
this otherwise,
hassle.
which is, residential permits or,
Right. Yeah.
no parking between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m.
I have a question about your proposed stormwater detention area. Now, is this close to, there was one person at the public hearing who had complained about this. Is it close to his property or is it away from it? Or?
Well, when I know the water tables out there and where the groundwater is, I don't think it's I met Gary Huth out there, the city engineer. We walked the property and we looked at everything, and the lot's been reseeded. We've got some erosion, socks up, and things like that. There's no runoff from this property right now. The issue for him is the proximity to Lake Mendota. And there's a high groundwater there, and when you have water surges, the groundwater is coming up from below. And that's what I believe is happening there, because we had similar issues over at Amherst. We did soil borings. We knew where the water table was. And So that's old construction that's happening there. So I can see it bubbling up, but it's coming from below. It's not coming from this property.
So you are handling your water in
Our
this
water will
property.
stay on our site, and then there will be like an emergency overflow that will tie into the storm sewer at that point. So if it ever did overflow, it would go directly into the storm system.
Elizabeth, you had some comment or question?
Can I just follow up on that? So again, there's an existing stormwater problem on other parcels. There's an existing parking problem caused by other parcels. We can't require this developer to remediate those.
Yeah.
Microphone? Can you use the microphone so he can record it?
Elizabeth Hedrick, I'm alderperson for District 4. This is in my district. I currently live at actually one of the Amherst Road properties that Mr. Goff developed. They're wonderful. I do really like the house that I live in. My concern is with the rain garden proposed. When Amherst Road was created, a rain garden was put in, and it's actually behind my neighbor in my house. There was no requirement made when people bought the houses that the entire street help with that rain garden, meaning it's fallen to 1 to 2 property owners to actually manage the whole water system. And if someone doesn't do that, then it gets clogged and then it doesn't actually work. So when you're looking at that with multiple properties, I think you really need to consider how that's going to go and work in the future. Just for that issue. I have other issues, but
So with a PDD, we can require that it be held under common ownership in something like a homeowners association that has both responsibility for.
I talked to Gary Huth about that, and I did show him the documents that were recorded that required lot owners 1 through 7 to maintain that. So it is a recorded document. So if you want to get a copy of that from Gary, you can. We'll do it differently this time because it's a maintenance problem, and I knew that up front. Who's going to maintain this? It's on lot 6. Well, it kind of falls to that person on lot 6 to maintain it, even though lot 3 and 4 are contributing to it. So.
Okay, any other question, or where do we go from here?
Hearing more from
Yes, Kathy.
Elizabeth, what her other concerns she has.
You had some other concern, Elizabeth?
I don't want to get too petty. I feel like I'm the person who's constantly saying, "Oh no, development," and I really don't feel that way. I have, in my heart of hearts, I love affordable housing, and while this is not affordable, single-family homes for people like myself are important. One of the biggest concerns I have is actually the trees. I know Mr. Goff did not remove all the trees, but he did remove about a third of trees on the property, and for me, it feels like we're rewarding developers who take an R1, remove the trees, and then say, okay, well, here's a PDD, and now you don't have to worry about the trees because you removed them already. It's really damaged the character of the neighborhood. If you've been out there, it's called Highwoods for a reason. It's beautiful old trees, wonderful houses with different characteristics that really create a neighborhood feel. And even the condominium association itself has a beautiful feel to the condo that really goes with it. And my concern is we're suddenly having this empty lot and we're going to have very, very cookie cutter houses. I love my house, but I'm not sure it fits in this neighborhood. And so I think a lot of, when you start looking at this, please think about the design of the stormwater, the design of the houses themselves, and whether or not we don't want a lot of density, and we don't want to push as many stuff as possible into one area just because we can. I really want to make sure we're respecting the neighbors and the neighborhood, the feel that they currently have. That's all.
I agree with Elizabeth on this. I hate to see it not be developed because it does look like it's just been ravaged. It does look bad without any trees on it.
As a developer, you come in here and you want to use the existing sewer. The existing sewer is on the backside on North Gateway. There are 7 laterals that will go there. Every time we go down a foot, we got to go 2 to 4 feet wide on each side for cave-in protection for trenching. We start digging 7 laterals back there that are 20, 30 feet wide. Well, now you got 200 feet of laterals. Where are the trees going to go? They're in the way. They're going to go down. There's a tree that was over the manhole. I showed Gary Huth, and I said, how did this happen? It's right over the sewer line. How dangerous is that? It's a cottonwood. They have a shallow root system. They blow over in storms. They'd already come down on the neighbor's house. I said to the neighbor, I'll take it down for you. You know, and you know, I said, I'll take it down for free. It's hugely dangerous. She's pregnant. What do you get? You know, that's like ridiculously stupid to have those trees. The black walnuts put down these nuts that poison the vegetation around it. The trees, you know, the ash borer trees, you know, these trees can be replanted, and they can be replanted in appropriate places.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But
You know,
when you come in
and
and say you need 7 laterals, you've already got it designed what you're going to be doing. I mean, you're not.
Well, you're going
or
to
five.
put homes in.
Five.
You got 50% impervious surface. If you would have saw Amherst before that, that was disgusting. Those trees. They had actually caved in the basement foundations on the duplexes. They were growing. They were all cottonwoods. They grow like weeds. You know, they're not planted trees. You know, they're not.
The fact is that when did you take them down, like last spring? And I mean,
Well,
the
the
neighbors
previous
have
owner
what they
who
had to
demolished the house took the trees down, and he has rights to do that. This is private property.
Sure.
He does not need to come to the city to take a tree down.
Well, all I want to say, though, is I can understand why the neighbors would do that.
Well,
But
That's
you didn't,
just-
you didn't take the trees down,
to
right?
Tom's credit, he
I took
wasn't
part of
the
them.
one who
Part of them.
took the majority of the trees. It was the previous owner who took down a lot of trees, then listed the property for sale, and then Tom came into City Hall and said, hey, I'm interested in this property. So most of them were taken down by the previous owner.
And we have a catch-22, because if we're thinking of Stagecoach too, if people say, you can't develop here because there's mature trees, don't rip them down, the idea of PDD zoning is we can have better site design. But then that tells the developer, well, then you can't develop this property because we got to save the trees. So there does create an incentive either way, then cut down the trees, then propose a rezoning, which then also looks bad. I mean,
Well, I'm not saying the trees wouldn't have to come down. What I'm saying is what's there is just so barren looking now.
Well,
And they've
it's
had to look at
redevelopment,
that.
and when you put new trees in, you put
Well, you will,
good trees in that are non-invasive trees and
yeah.
trees that are resistant to disease and that are appropriate trees. And you know, you don't need any more cottonwoods in Middleton.
And
So-
now we only allow.
Susan wants us to plant more cottonwoods, right? Just something to say.
We have a lot more diversity in the trees now to protect. against
Okay,
something like
so where do we go from here? So you are.
Mark wants.
May I make a correction? The developer actually just said that he referred to 50% impervious surface area. You're actually doing yourself a disservice because based on the footprints in your driveways, I calculated you're at about 38% impervious surface area. That doesn't factor in eaves.
7?
With 7. So I just wanted to say you're actually being a little hard on yourself.
Okay.
And I also wanted to say that my recommendation was factored in the workforce housing and the fact that this density is comparable to a lot of a lot of lots that we have in the city that have successfully developed, both downtown and Middleton Hills and other places, Cedar Ridge. And but the point that David made about the 6 and having it oriented along Gateway, I completely understand and support that. I mean, that makes sense. We could certainly live with that as well. The issue of affordability was what was the concern that I factored in when I felt that this could be done, and so that's why I recommended approval.
What we see is when things start out as affordable with smaller lots and smaller houses, they quickly become not so affordable in the secondary, you know, as somebody else buys it and the prices are going up, and that's, I think, what happens.
Unless you have development restrictions.
Well, I was under developer's agreement at that point, and many of the homes, you know, had finished basements that weren't included in that cost, or screen porches, things like that. But I think they had a range of about 180 to 200.
210.
Yeah.
It's just-
Well, there's a huge demand for
it shows-
housing in Middleton.
It shows the demand and the success of
If
the
you build
projects.
5 units here, if you build 7, if you build 20, you'll sell them all. Right? That's-
Okay, so where do we, does somebody,
Well,
now,
our request
are you
now is for
interested in
rezoning.
6 or 7 units, or what is,
Well,
what's your
I would
rationale?
request, you know, the 7 at this point. I mean, if you want to make a motion to approve 6, I can live with it, you know. It changes the whole dynamics of the project. And that doesn't bother me, but if you're committed to, you know, getting people into Middleton to afford homes, it kind of goes against what.
I think the 6 would be a lot more palatable for the neighborhood.
Okay, so is somebody ready to make some motions?
Well, but The neighborhood that's concerned is the condos on the south side of Charing Cross. Am I seeing it right? Across the street on Game, okay. So, I mean, whether it's 2 or 3 single-family lots on that corner is not going to really affect the quality of the neighborhood. Right, I mean, the aesthetics about how the houses fit on the lot, but...
There's other people who agree with us who aren't here tonight, and there were people who signed those papers at the last meeting when we had public input. A lot of people don't like the idea of 7.
They want 5 instead?
Well, I'd be happy with 6. Why can't we compromise?
It doesn't, I like 6. I don't have a problem with it. I just.
Okay, let's stop
it will
right there.
completely change.
Motion to do all the things that you said, but with 6 properties on the lot.
Okay, so need a...
Second.
Okay. So any further discussion?
Well, I feel a lot better hearing from the neighbors that they can live with 6, so I do appreciate that.
Okay, then,
5 is better.
okay, are we ready to vote? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so 2 to 5.
Leaf and Kurt.
Okay, let's move on to the next item
Wait,
now.
can we get clarification? Who voted nay?
That's 2.
Okay, so the next one is the specific implementation plan modification for Spectrum Brands dust collection and closure. It's simply increasing the size of that facility, so.
Move approval as a minor SFD modification.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have to dust off my plans.
Okay, so all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed. So the next one is the concept review for certified survey map on Fox 7421 Terrace Avenue. Colleen?
Yeah, and one of the concerns I think we have with this is typically when we have a flag lot or a lots that are in a cul-de-sac, they may be narrower than the 60 feet or the 80. In this case, it's R2, so it's 80 feet wide. But at the building line, they're the required width. And in this case, we have a proposed lot that it's not at the buildable area until you get way back with about 60 feet left in the lot. Now, I don't think staff is against having another house on here. It's a question of how you do it. Because I don't think the house would be allowed to be on the lot until you're at the 80-foot wide one. We showed our attorney layout, Mark put a layout of how it would fit within that. It's very narrow.
Be a long driveway setback from the street?
Yeah, because the front setback would be taken care of by the flag, but you still have a 30-foot rear setback. And I think our attorney was suggesting maybe we could have an interpretation to take to the zoning board of appeals that might allow the house to be turned and be in a part of that flag lot. But we don't have all the details yet. We were just, trying to work with him on it, so.
That would be a self-created hardship.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
yeah, and that's
Caused by the
a
CSM.
concern. So he said, is there some other way to do it by a rezoning? This is R2. If it were rezoned to R1, it would be still in the midst of R2, but you're, downzoning it somewhat, and then it could meet it, it could be a lot more buildable. But
You would just rezone that lot?
Both lots.
Both
lots.
Wait, so it's one lot existing,
It's one lot existing with a 3-unit on it.
and that's the existing house?
Yep.
The 3-unit.
A legal, non-conforming 3-unit.
Legal non-conforming.
It's illegal,
It's legal,
absolutely
prior
legal.
non-conforming,
Yep,
right?
And why is it non-conforming?
because it's 3 units in an R2.
R2, okay.
And they can keep it that way for, 100 years.
As long as they don't expand it or alter the use or...
But the issue is then the 80 feet of frontage where you need to have the buildable area and you're back here. And maybe that's fine, I just didn't have a chance to work with the
So
applicant.
R2 requires 80 feet frontage,
Yes.
and R1 requires 60 feet. But this would be only 47.
It would, right, at the street.
And we
have
define
allowed-
frontage at the street or its average width?
We have always interpreted it to be at the building line, at the building setback line. If you look back at some of the plats that have been done, that's noted.
So the frontage is measured at the building setback line as measured off of the front of the parcel, the part of the parcel that adjoins the street.
Right, or you don't have it until, you don't consider it to be the buildable area until you've achieved the required lot width.
Is there
But if
any
we-
hurry to act on this, or is this something that we
I think
can?
maybe their applicant is here, I'm not sure, okay.
So you want
Okay,
to
yeah.
come up and,
Well, I mean, as he's coming, I just want to raise a point. If we don't approve a CSM, then he has one lot
Right.
that has an economically viable use, so it's not a taking. The CSM as before us, by allowing this to be created, we're creating a non-conformance.
Right, unless, it's conforming in terms of size, if the building area is set back, this area, it would be conforming, it's just a flag lot with a
Flag
really
lot.
weird flag.
Yeah.
We had looked at several different plans for, for somewhat more narrow houses that wouldn't look out of character for the neighborhood, but would we be allowed to do it? We'd be able to fit them with, and even though it's a fairly narrow part up front, there are home plans that would work with the setbacks in there.
But you can't build in that flag part, because that's not 80 feet wide.
it's not wide enough.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're Jim, right?
No, Ben.
No, I'm Ben Falk.
Ben?
How old is that house there right now?
How old is it?
Yeah.
It's 999 on the years. It's probably 100 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
So what we've kind of run into, we've been there for about 13 years now. We originally went through a lot of different ideas as to what could we do to, make that into a nicer home and remodel it, but really hard to find anything that makes sense. Just kind of, it's an older home, but kind of lacks the character at the same time, and so
It's got 3 units in it?
there are 3 units. Yeah, it's been that way for well before I owned it. That's why it's the non-conforming.
Yeah, it's been that way since
Grandfathered.
before I was here.
Everybody seems to remember somebody who's lived there.
Is this the yellow house?
Yes, it's right across from the library.
And there are,
That's where we
the
would
three
need to be.
apartments are, they're used now? You still use it as
Yes,
apartments?
there's the lower portion that I live in with my family, which we're kind of outgrowing and trying to figure out a way around. That's where building on the other lot, were there to be one, would be our preference because we'd love to stay in the neighborhood. And then there's 2 also apartments upstairs.
I mean, so one alternative is rezone it PDDI with kind of, I mean, with like a secondary use where it is a second home, but it's not a separate lot. It's almost like an accessory dwelling, which is not either conditional use or use permitted by right in our zoning, so we'd have to do a
Does that
PDD.
do anything to the status of the non-conforming 3-unit that's already there?
Would give it conforming status.
That would actually bring it into conforming status by
yeah,
creating
I
a
guess it
very,
would be, yeah.
very special one-lot PDDI. Now, that raises its own question of whether a lawyer would say that's spot zoning.
Right, that could be. But I did talk with, I think, some of your family members about potentially rezoning it, because I was concerned about this, even though at the point that I talked about it, I was just a napkin sketch, and we didn't know the
You'd hate to
dimensions.
knock down
of how
100 of your
big it was.
houses.
But I think there was a time, I think you wanted to be building this winter, and so it would take longer to actually have a rezoning, and I think that they wanted to try to have.
Yeah, there were some hoped for timelines. That was just kind of based on hoping to roll a 1031 into the whole thing, but
Okay, so what's the
There'd be
recommendation?
mortgage implications as well of doing what you're suggesting, I think, wouldn't there?
Well, and
No, you can get a mortgage on a property that's under condominium ownership, under an accessory dwelling, as long as there's no backhand resale restrictions. There's There's no problem getting a mortgage.
But if you were going to do a PDD infill, you could still do 2 lots, and you could create this.
You could create 2 lots.
Yeah, I mean. 'cause
And then you're not subject to lot size restrictions. But then we'd want to see the design and how it fits on the,
I mean, it's a big lot, and, you know, that's one reason why I think we were saying, well, sure, you know, it makes sense to at least look at that. In the downtown, lots are very desirable.
but
It's a question of how you.
the
make
problem
that
is the existing house is,
It's,
we're not going to move that. Nobody wants to move that 100-year-old house.
and I think it was looked at a long time ago, probably before you owned it. I think somebody had come in and it wasn't going to work at that point either, and I think they just abandoned the idea, or I can't remember the specifics and couldn't find the record on it, but it may be that they just talked about it and never really formally applied either.
But, I mean,
Want us to work with our attorney and the applicant to see if we can come up with
yeah,
a-
because as it is right now, I'm not going to vote to create a
Okay.
lot that I
Okay.
know is a non-conforming lot.
Okay, so let's do that.
Because
So-
that's,
You can't do that.
well, I mean, no,
Yeah.
as a city, if you deliberately create a non-conforming lot, then it is a lot. You can't deny all
Exactly.
economically beneficial use. It's a
Exactly.
taking, then you're
Right, and under what,
back in a circle.
right, and under what scenario would we, you know, would
Okay,
the
so
city
you,
approve
is
it?
that your
It's not
motion,
the-
Cindy?
That's my motion to
Okay, I
defer
need a
the
second.
action for further study.
Second.
Okay, and, okay, so are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is to defer,
So we
so,
can talk with the applicant about
yes.
it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is
Yeah.
recommendation to Inspire Nature Center Preschool, Uncle Road, County Road
And I
M.
can describe this.
Yes, go ahead.
And I also have something from the town. Last night, the town plan commission met, and they said, they recommended approval only as to the PDD GIP, because the SIP and design review would happen later, subject to conditions and restrictions of the recommendation of staff. Because it's in our extraterritorial zoning area, the process is that the town obviously has a recommendation to the city. The joint committee, Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee, has to hold a hearing, and that's scheduled for this Thursday. The meeting starts at 5:30, the hearing is at 6. And then our council also has to hold a hearing, and that hearing will be on December 5th. And the town plan commission is recommending approval. I think that staff, I think the town staff, and I feel like this is a fitting use here. It's always going to stay in the town. It won't be in. It's 40 acres with one use, and predominantly, you know, still staying rural and agricultural. I think we got a letter, or I distributed, oh no, he sent it to you, the email from Terrence
Wolf.
supporting
yeah,
it,
yeah.
with some suggestions for trails throughout there, which would be nice. I mean, if this is going to be adjacent to the farm and the prairie neighborhoods of the community of Bishop's Bay, and it would be nice to have a trail
Bike
network
paths connection.
linking that. And a lot of kids probably will come from that area to this.
So if I recall Terrence's email, he wanted that, he suggested that be a condition of the rezoning request that he provide the connectors in the trails.
Right.
But some of that's going along, what's that road? M?
Yeah, he said.
Which is,
No, I
needs
think
the
it-
county
okay.
highway. Right, no, the bike path would be along M.
Yeah, and there's one going west too.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, well, parallel to, not immediately along Hunt.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to
On the
come over?
microphone.
just full disclosure, my granddaughter does go to the same type of preschool on the east side. I don't pay for it though.
All right, I'll sit up there now.
Okay, go ahead.
So the picture that you're probably looking at that has a proposed bike path going from east to west, that was just something we originally
Where's
threw
that?
in there.
Back here.
Yep, you got it.
A bike trail east-west on the
Yeah.
property.
Right, but I did
Connect
talk.
to,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
which would connect to the tunnel to the state park.
Yes, except we didn't know on the other end actually goes to Terrence's subdivision, and there wasn't really any plans to connect it there. That was my misinterpretation of what
There
he
is
had
actually.
planned. But What Laura Hicks from Dane County and I think Terrence have planned is a connection going directly south from the tunnel and then connecting there.
Today, he's okay with it.
Terrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said.
Well,
However, please make sure that any approval includes the requirement for the location and construction of a bike path along Highway M to the tunnel and the bike path from the tunnel straight west to the preschool and continuing on to the Bishop's Bay property where we will link our path to it. Also requires proper stormwater, which is absolutely, and landscaping plan.
Yeah.
And also they wanted to know about he suggested a prairie buffer along M, which is also what they will have, so. But the SIP and design review would be at a later date. If the council approves the rezoning on December 5th, then they would have to submit the design. And again,
requiring a bike path, that would be at the GIP stage, right?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate to say, and the location of it, the exact location and the landscaping could be worked out. Anyway, I was prepared to say, I mean, for various uses that have been proposed, no, we want that open, and this seemed like a good buffer and open space use.
Yeah.
So.
I'm looking at Tom Wilson's letter
Yes.
from the town. He talks about the community separation zone in their comprehensive plan. Is that referring to the kind of joint agreement that there's going to be a clear delineation between city land and town land? Okay.
And that's why we have the prairie and the farm and the town, and then this, and then the Dorn Creek buffer, that won't be developed at all. So north of Onken won't be developed at all, beyond what it is. And here, I'll just distribute this. Would you mind distributing? These are the minutes that we got this afternoon from the Town of Westport Plan Commission meeting last night. And it's the last paragraph on the page. And so they're saying the planned recreational path along County Trunk Highway M be constructed as approved by Dane County Parks. Property be reviewed by a town consultant for military trail remnants, potential protection recommendations, and that the grading plan be properly approved. So there's a lot of conditions, and that would also be talked about at the joint committee and also at the hearing in front of the council on December 5th.
Okay, so you want to recommend approval with all those conditions then?
Add the east-west path too.
Yeah.
And that is consistent with the master development plan for Bishop's Bay.
So I'd make that recommendation to recommend rezoning to PDD GIP, subject to the conditions outlined in the Westport Plan Commission minutes and the staff comments, and adding the east-west bike connector.
Okay, any discussion now? Well, if we're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Kathy? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. So the next item is the urban greenway area study. So who is going to take that one?
I can take it. The golf committee did meet last night. They're not supporting the Greenway plan at this time. I think Jeremy is here, he can probably talk about it too, because it's not adequately acknowledging the operational impacts on Pleasant View Golf Course stemming from any potential changes the study recommends. The golf course committee cannot see a successful path due to moving the driveway. However, the golf committee will be open to entertain proposals created by a professional golf course architect. I do have another memo from Jeff Maloney. You had two in your packet. These are changes that were made or being proposed as a result of changes or requests from Terry Turner, the is he chair of the golf course committee? Then we got something, or received an email from Jeremy talking about the the concerns, and anyway, their minutes are out, and I didn't have a chance to make the copies, but they said they're not supporting the proposals related to Pleasant View Golf Course within it right now. And we're hoping that, and again, I just got this tonight about 5:15, so I'm hoping to bring back some things to address this at the next Plan Commission meeting.
So deferral then?
Yeah, unless, the other thing we can do too is talk about comments that the Plan Commission might have, because this is the first time it was brought back for some time, and we do have several new members.
Okay.
And there's a lot of information in there, but, so if you have any comments that you want to, not that you can't make them next time too, but if you have any proposed
Yes.
changes.
Not knowing the personalities involved, I'm trying to figure out what the big conflict is. As I understand it, the parcel that the city acquired has more than just the golf course, right?
Yes.
I don't know, and I can't pull up my map, how far
Ratio
west that parcel goes.
90% and 10 or 11%, somewhere 10% maybe.
And when it talks about recreational and hospitality use on the quarry side, that's just conceptual, right? Because the quarry's still in use.
It's in the town, it's still an active quarry.
And there would never be, I mean, there's that kind of stub of road off of 14 that, what is that called, that gets to the...
No, it's just it's
Quartz Road?
Quartz Road. There's no ever talk about making that come through to the...
There is talk about that in connection with the
But that's ski facility.
Ski facility.
Cross-country ski
But that would not cut through to the golf.
It could
No.
potentially, at some point, not
could.
as a private, not as a public street, but maybe
As
as
a
a
public
driveway to
street.
connect parking.
So there's two issues, and the other thing before us is the Pleasant View Road reconstruction, right? There's the question of why you can't enter the golf course at the northern end of the property, where if you look at the Google map, it looks like there's a unpaved trail or something, so that you don't have to, because right now you have to come down to Pleasant View, enter and go up and around.
Mm-hmm.
But is that mainly to preserve a view shed, that it's because of the slope? I don't understand what the issue is.
There was an old driveway that went on to
Yeah.
Pleasant View. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
And now it's a little bit in a little bit safer location in terms of the hill. The hill's.
So it was a line of sight issue.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I don't think I'm leaving anything out, but
I mean, we don't want to harm the golf course.
no,
Yep.
nobody
At
wants
all.
to do that. So
So why are they rejecting the Greenway study? Because the Greenway study right now
It has many other things.
would have things that would negatively impact the golf course.
could negatively impact it, right?
Yeah, I guess the major objection was there were 3 options, and where the entrance would be. That's probably the biggest objection, I think.
That the biggest argument is to the
At least
entrance.
which I can see, and then they were also proposing some parkway going through, which I couldn't fully understand, right?
And the sports training center referred to that's
Yeah, that's
Olympic
the
skiing.
proposed
That's right.
ski facility if that happens, so.
and that's north,
That's,
west and north of the golf course. But the way to access it right now is through the existing golf course road.
no, you can't access, this facility doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's the proposed
there's
access,
not a
and also
connection yet.
extending the Schwartz Road, that will be the main access. But this will be the secondary access to the parking lot.
And the points that they made in the golf course committee, again, because it's not recognizing the operational impacts, and they're concerned about the driveway, Mike Davis said he felt that they could likely be addressed through a revised emphasis in the document on the financial impacts and prominent impact of the Pleasant View Golf Course, which is very true, prominent economic impact, and then removal of options other than the existing golf entryway. So I think that was a concern, that it still showed some potential changes, so maybe it stays where it is, versus being moved to the south, which was the issue, I think, potentially as it, and then through the Plan Commission's and Council's approval of keeping the entryway in its current configuration with the engineer's extended turn lane as currently depicted in the Pleasant View Road plans at its juncture with the Golf Course Parkway. And that, he believes that's the Public Works Committee's recommended action as well. Again, there just wasn't time, because we had the CDA meeting first, to pull it all together, so I apologize.
Isn't there something in the plan about cutting down the hill?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in the,
And then,
that's what the
you know, it would
intent.
seem to me that you did that, the line of sight from the existing entryway would be much, much improved, and we wouldn't have to do a lot of, I mean, the idea of going up that hill directly to the clubhouse, just, I don't think, it doesn't strike me as very attractive.
Sure.
It's
Right.
much easier to come in and sort of be surprised when you get up there, and that's nice they are. And then the real issue is where's the extra parking going to come from, and so forth. But we spent a lot of money, and it's now and getting that course right. And Jeremy has made so many improvements on it. All of the plantings, all of the sand, so much of it has been remarkably improved and everybody you talk to loves the course. It's, we don't want to do anything that's going to impact on it. And otherwise we're going to inherit Madison's problems.
Yep. No, it's working, so I don't think there's
Yeah,
any
this
problem.
is well drained.
So we're rejecting any idea that the entrance would come off of Greenway Boulevard, right?
Yeah, I don't see there's any reason. Why would somebody coming off Greenway want to go
If
the golf
something
course?
is
I mean,
working,
Right.
it's not a
So,
thoroughfare.
why
Makes it
fix
into
it?
a major thoroughfare.
So we can have them, Vanderwall take that out completely and
Yeah, I think that's.
show it, I think as was suggested perhaps by the golf course committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, showing it as an option that had been considered, but deleted or whatever, but just have it as for the planning record that was looked at, so 20 years from now, so we can say, oh yeah, they did look at it, but they
Where's the
rejected it
ski?
because of these reasons.
Right.
Does that sound what you guys were thinking of, or?
Do you want me to come up?
Yes.
sure, go ahead.
This property is also part of the city?
Yes. No, it's not right now, but ski area.
Is that the property that is referred to as the urban
Yes,
property?
Jeremy.
So there were two different, I believe we're talking about two different motions that the golf committee recommended last night. One was in regards to the study itself. They stated that the study doesn't adequately protect the golf course's assets with the proposed plans. Essentially, that's paraphrasing their recommendation, right? The other recommendation happened to do with Pleasant View Road, where they rejected any notion of taking any golf course land to expand the road to the west. And then the second part of that, agenda topic was that the golf committee was open to an idea of having a professional architect come out and give options, but they couldn't see a clear pathway or a positive result in moving the driveway to Greenway Boulevard. But they were open to the idea of at least exploring options.
Okay.
Again, paraphrasing, that's not exactly.
Yes, Kurt.
Maybe I misread anything. Is the Pleasant View Road preliminary design that we looked at, does that actually that envisions taking some of the golf course land to expand?
It nibbles at it.
Well, there's the ATC line, so it doesn't go beyond that, though, does it?
The ATC lines are
That's to be
on
determined. That's to
yeah.
be determined.
Right, but so the golf committee is just protecting its right of way, right?
Right. Yeah, you'd have to see the designs as to how much, how much.
Yeah, there's a lot that has to go into this.
Yeah.
As far as a design standpoint, you're going from a two-lane road to a 4-lane facility. I'm not sure how that's going to fit through there with the apartments to the east
and the golf course
to the west,
and the power lines.
So the topography isn't real accommodating there to just go to the east. So we just have to see what those designs bring at a future date. And I agree with you, Jeremy, from the perspective of employing a professional golf course designer. Just look at maybe some additional options. Not a bad idea, because I think when it comes to dollars and cents and trying to figure out how this is going to work, you're going to be between a rock and a hard place between golf course and the east side of the road. And topography, that's going to take a lot of fill in there too. So to fill the east side,
yeah.
So And so there's gonna be some, costs that are gonna be played out, that's gonna play out in here, and it may push it one way or the other. That's all I can say. So, yeah,
Well, it is a good idea, I guess.
the committee is taking the right position.
Yep, the committee made a statement that they just don't want, the road to impede on the golf course any more than it necessarily has to, right? So.
There's gonna be some financials that are gonna come out of here then.
I agree. ATC is a big player in that as well. So.
In the same way that we didn't pass a motion, but we were open to the idea of recommending to the design of the Pleasant View Road corridor that it not negatively impact the farmers co-op ability to get their trucks in there.
So that's your biggest concern, those three options, right?
I think we're getting into two different parts of the agenda here, right? We've got the Greenway study, and then we've got Pleasant View Road here, right?
Okay.
So which one do you want me to respond to?
The Greenway study.
The Greenway study?
Yeah, that's what we are talking about
so,
right now,
the biggest piece is that we all have these great ideas of what to do with that property up there, and it is a brilliant piece of property in my opinion. The fact of the matter is that all these suggestions are made without, in my opinion, and the golf committee's opinion, without our our beliefs and our wants of protecting that golf course and keeping the non-golf users off of the property. I believe that the paths and what's going on north of the property would be very, very great for the city, but we need to do something to keep those pedestrians and those non-golf users off of the golf course, and that's what the study fails to address.
Oh, I see.
Off the golf course.
Off the golf course, and that's another piece.
There's a way to share a parking.
No. So we can't share parking any longer. We're at capacity as is, right? We've actually created, we as in the golf course and golf committee have had our own parking study done because we need to expand our parking going forward. What I think what the study does is it doesn't distinguish what's. So they say, well, we're going to bring trails to the golf course. Okay, well, which part? Is it the 90% or is it the 10%? I think we need to start creating a name for the non-golf part, right?
Okay.
The golf course, in my eyes, is, well, as of right now, it's all 305 acres until the council says otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when the study says that we're going to bring trails to the golf course, I get nervous, right?
Which part? So.
Right. Well, what part of the golf course? Because it's 305 acres. So it's not very distinguishable of where they're exactly talking about in some of this study. And again, I just want, and who's here? Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, I want, and the golf committee just wants to secure the property. That's it. From non-golf users.
Okay. Well, Aline is writing that all down, so that's so that's the biggest thing there then.
Yeah, look, and I said this in my email, right? We provide a product and we charge people for this product. It's up to $60 a person plus tax, right? People expect to receive a good value product after paying that.
Oh, absolutely.
We start throwing pedestrians in front of them while they're playing golf or bikers, that product is now diminished in value, in my opinion.
Okay, so that was, so are there any other concern related to the, other than those?
My biggest concerns are securing the property and relocating the trailhead for the bike park. Which the study, I believe the study acknowledged that in one of the paragraphs.
Okay.
Where's the current trailhead for the bike park?
At Pleasant View Golf Course's parking lot.
It's right there. And so, yeah, I remember right there's the bike park, but there's the trailhead.
No, it's
But people who want to bike the bike park come and park in your parking.
Correct.
So then you also have 2 pages. If they are incorporated in the report, then that should be good as well.
Do what now? What'd you say?
There were some of these suggestions on page 15, page 21.
Yep. Oh, those were Terry Turner's suggestions?
Yeah. I suppose so, yeah.
Yep. Verbiage. Okay. And there were some trails that were put on, some greens, some things just need to be adjusted. Those are really minor things.
Okay. All right.
And there were 2 previous memos from Jeff Maloney where he took into account the golf course committee.
And I believe he made those changes.
Right.
Yep.
Did, and they were included in the packet.
Yep.
So he made changes related to what you guys had commented on.
Start getting very close.
Yeah, I think if the study just recognizes exactly what the golf committee said is it doesn't adequately meet the security of what we need. We've got all these ideas to push things out there. We need to state how it's going to protect the golf course.
Okay, well, that's important. I mean,
The golf
At that
course,
point,
not
yeah.
like the actual
Yes.
physical golf course, not the other 10%.
Oh, absolutely. So,
And by that, you mean also the parking lot and the clubhouse and the road access to those?
Yeah, well, the road access, I think, kind of plays into the Pleasant View Road agenda item, but, again, I'll repeat that the golf committee is open to ideas of an architect, a professional architect coming in and giving ideas. If the Plan Commission, if the Common Council feels like we should look at moving that entryway to Greenway Boulevard, then we need to have a professional architect come in and tell us what we should be doing.
No, but what I mean is the current road where it's configured.
Yep. The driveway or the Pleasant View
The
Road?
driveway.
Okay.
You could imagine a world, hypothetically, where there's a separate trailhead and separate parking lot for the bike park, and
Absolutely.
maybe even the Olympic thing that shares that driveway,
Shares the driveway.
but not having them access the course.
I'm assuming you've got a Google map.
Yeah, that's
So
what I'm trying to
right
zoom
where the
in.
pines start.
Yep.
Okay, and then there's an ATC line that goes due west.
Yep.
Okay, that would be the fork. Okay,
Yep.
so
That would be-
everything
yeah.
south of that point, right, would be Pleasant View Golf Course. We would maintain it. We would do the
Right.
plowing, everything, right? Everything north of that would be Public Works would maintain it.
Right. That's the memo that Mike Davis sent us.
Exactly.
That's
I think we're very open to the
Fork right
idea of
there.
sharing that driveway. But what that does for us is relocates the trailhead and alleviates some parking pressure that we currently have.
David, you have some questions or? So I guess this was mainly for discussion, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then we move on to the next one, Pleasant View Road reconstruction, and preliminary design issues. Is that Mark?
I don't have much to say because the motion or the recommendation is that you refer this back to the Public Works Committee. I will simply add that our meetings with Strand are going well in terms of
Thank you, Jeremy.
Initiating the design process and developing some design concepts. One of the biggest challenges has been the state law change and the change in state law that precludes consideration of bicycle and pedestrian ways as part of, for condemnation for expanding roads.
But there was some move to get that changed.
And we're hopeful that there's an effort afoot at the state level to change that. Otherwise, our game plan with the design is to plan for a corridor that could eventually accommodate that potentially. If we, right now we're planning for a 120-foot wide corridor, and how that space is allocated remains to be seen. So that's the official direction that we're going. So at this point, the Public Works Committee wants to revisit the design at their next meeting. Gary Huth asked that this be formally referred back to the committee since they had already adopted a motion. So that was why the staff comments were to recommend that you refer it back to Public Works Committee.
Okay, do I have the recommendation then to refer it? Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay.
Can we amend this to refer back to Public Works, but with the recommendation that they protect
All options.
I'm looking at the discussion we had last time, that they protect the Middleton Farmers Co-op access issues. Because that was one area where we were going to disagree with what their recommendations were.
I think
Okay.
that actually is a very good thought. I should have included that. I like that idea from a staff standpoint.
So is that your motion then?
Yeah, I'm just moving to amend the motion, if that's okay.
So is that okay with you?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so any further discussion? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So, that's it. So need a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Opposed.
Thank you. Boy, that was long.
I don't want to
one,
adjourn.
so-
Abby won by 2 minutes.